Hey team, welcome back to the show. Today it is Coach Andrea and I talking through Andrea's photo shoot journey to achieving her best physique ever. Or I would say like your journey to achieving your best physique ever so far, which kind of culminated in the photo shoot you just wrapped up. What has it been, almost 2 weeks ago now?
Yep, a couple Sundays ago.
But I really think this will be such a helpful process to highlight because I think the physique that you're at now is really what a lot of the women we work with aspire to. Like you were very lean, plenty of muscle, definitely look like you lift, you got some great quads on you. So I think it'll be super helpful to kind of dig into this process. We have a lot of questions here. We also did a listener Q&A. Hopefully we have time to get through all these, but I figured we'd probably just skip the personal updates and get right into it. Anything else you want to hit us with before we get into the actual topic here?
No, not really. I mean, I think that we'll get to everything here, and I want to make sure that we're able to get through a lot of these questions.
Cool. And I really, again, kind of want to talk through your journey first, kind
Yeah.
of the entire process, the decision making, and a lot of it, the different strategies you learned along the way, what your peak week looked like, how the shoot went, how you feel about your progress. And some of the listener questions we'll answer along the way here. But then we'll really dig into things at the end here. So first, talk us through again this process. What it was a 5 month process, correct? You were in fat loss for 5 months prepping for this photo shoot.
Yeah, that was the diet aspect. Yeah.
Okay. So talk us through kind of where you were at when you decided to start the photo shoot prep. Where was body comp at?
When I started the fat loss phase specifically,
Yep. Just think like a fat loss photo shoot prep.
yeah, I asked that because it's been a work in progress for more than a year.
That's a really
So
good point. Yeah,
yeah,
take
when
us
I
back there if you
started,
think that's relevant, man.
yeah, so the end of my previous fat loss phase, I was actually the same weight as I ended up at for this photo shoot, which was 142. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I wanted to do a photo shoot, which I actually figured that that's what I was going to do even before that. So there was like in sort of in preparation for this, even though it was a longer term goal, I've had the health phase, which was a year and a half, and then a diet phase, and then I was in a build for over a year. So at the end of that build, that's where I was getting started in this fat loss phase. And so body comp wasn't something that I was super comfortable in. I definitely,
Mm-hmm.
like, I got to my heaviest weight ever, which the scale doesn't really matter, but I do think body fat was just higher than what I'm comfortable with. And that's just how it tends to go when you're early on and don't have a lot of muscle. So for this next build, I'll be able to stay leaner because I'm starting out leaner and have more muscle than I did last time. Um, I was at like 167 at my heaviest,
Right.
and so 142 at the photo shoot. So quite a bit heavier. But like I said, I had been building for over a year and focused on mostly lower body lifts. And so, um, yeah, getting to the point where I was a little uncomfortable, felt like Natalie says, large and in charge. And so it was all a means to the goal, though, which was to add a lot more muscle than I had previously. And I feel like I did a good job with that.
Yeah, I would fully agree. I really like the point as well around as you go through these different phases, building phases, fat loss phases more and more, you will add more muscle tissue, and that does make it so much easier to stay leaner, appear leaner in the long term. I think that's something people forget as well, like because it's oftentimes so scary to like start a building phase after I just got leaner than I ever have before. But it really does, again, like the longer we spend in these different phases and using them correctly, the easier it is to just maintain a linear physique all the time. I'm excited to see what like your building phase looks like this time versus the last time, because I think it'll, like any body comp, like you were in a good place at the last one, but I think any body comp will probably be a lot better still.
Yeah, I'm
uh,
excited to get into it.
What made you decide that you wanted to do a photo shoot?
I wasn't sure yet that I wanted to compete, but I wanted to push myself and I like having a goal that I'm aiming for. So, um, I even at some point before I started the diet asked my coach, does it still make sense to do this? Should I just keep going? And knowing now that I want to compete, and we decided to go ahead and go for it. But I just really like to have a goal. it's, and it is still a goal whenever you're just saying that you want to build muscle, get leaner. But for me, it's so much more fun to have something a little bit more high pressure that I'm aiming towards. So that was a big part of it. But also, I've done it before and I've done a lot of work in between. And I wanted to be able to compare the two. And I also think it's just a fun thing for coaches specifically to do. If you're a coach, you're putting out there the whole process along the way. People really like it and resonate with it and like to be able to follow along with that journey. And I've had a ton of people asking me like, when are you going to put the photos out? And so like people are actually really invested in it and care about seeing the whole process through to the end, which is really just fun and cool as a coach to be able to showcase to people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if you're a coach, doing a photo shoot is one of the best things you can do. Honestly, for getting your clients more bought in and invested as well, because it is like it just allows you to tell such a great, like such a clear story. Even if it's just like, hey, I'm just doing a fat loss phase, but there's not a clear endpoint. I don't know. It's like if there's not a, like every story, like in Lord of the Rings, they got to make it to Mount Doom, right? If it was just like, we're just wandering somewhere until we're tired of it. They wouldn't like have the same as like, are they gonna make it there? Like, are they gonna, I don't know, be alive? You know what I mean? The same thing here is like, okay, is she gonna be able to get the result? Is it like, and being able to like see the adjustments we're making around this very clear result I want on this date, people can just follow your story so well. But also like you putting out, okay, here's what it takes to get here. Here's me actually walking through like, I'm trying to achieve this by this timeline, and here's how I'm managing my day to day. Like that's like when I did my photo shoot prep with Brandon and Cruz, the last one that I did was I would like post my steps every day and like, yo, look at this. I'm like doing 15K steps every single day. Like we don't miss. Or the like mustard salad things. Like although just like I feel like as a coach, like showing people like things like that, I know that's been very helpful for us in just helping people understand, okay, here's kind of what the level I have to operate to get a result like this looks like as well.
Yeah. And like
Um,
you said, it helps your clients to level up because they can see that daily effort and then they can see the outcome.
and you're always leveling up as well, right? Like I'm sure, and we'll talk about this, but I'm sure you learned a lot in this process as well. Um, what or how do you feel your physique compared? Because again, the goal is to kind of compare current physique to the physique. Last time you did a photo shoot, you were a pretty similar weight, like 140 versus 142, correct?
They were actually both 142.
Oh, even
Like the
better.
last
So,
three fat loss phases, I've been the exact same lowest weight.
okay, interesting. That's super big,
Yeah.
actually. So, how do you feel? Like, did that bum you out? I was the same weight every time, or do you feel like you were able to see my physique is a lot different on the same weight?
I actually like that that ended up happening because then you can very clearly see
Yeah,
it's not like, oh, well, yeah, I was 5 pounds lighter this time. So of course I'm leaner. It's no, I was
right.
the exact same weight. And at this exact same weight, I can clearly see a lot more quad definition. I'm leaner. My shoulders are much more defined. So yeah, that was actually really cool. So yeah, I mean, basically I have more muscle and I'm leaner at the same weight than the last time I did it and then the previous time before that.
I really think same weight comparisons over the course of like a year and then 2 years, the longer a client works to do, the better. But that's like one of the coolest things to be able to show clients, like, hey, look at how much different our physique looks in these pictures. Like you said, like I'm leaner, my glutes have grown, whatever it might be. And then also even body measurements, right? When it's like, hey, you're the same weight, but last time we were here, your navel measurement was 2 inches higher than it is right now. We can clearly tell, and your glutes were smaller than they are right now in our measurements. Like we can clearly tell we built muscle. And we're also leaner at this weight than last time we were here. those things just make it so helpful for people to not get too attached to the scale. And I think that again, like when we're focusing on building the best body composition and physique development, not just like weight loss, it's so important to be able to like look at those other metrics, because if it was just like you were just looking at the scale as your metric of progress, it could be easy to think like I haven't made progress in years because every time I diet I just get down to 142, you know.
Yeah.
What
Yeah, for sure.
and I was going to say the same, sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything else. Go ahead.
I was going to say the same. Your physique looked a lot different. Quads came up a ton. I was super impressed with that. What do you think were the biggest difference makers when we're looking at this timeline between last time you did your last photo shoot versus this one? What do you think were the biggest difference makers in your physique there in the time between?
I had that whole health phase that I went through. So, um, digestion improved, sex hormones improved, thyroid health improved. That's obviously huge because it's a very slow, grindy process to change the external whenever the internal is not in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
So that health phase was a big part of it, as much as that sucked. And then I just train harder now. I also was doing a lower body specialization, so the I mean that's a big part of why I was working my quads really hard 3 times a week. Like before my programming got changed up a little bit for recovery, I was just constantly sore and achy, honestly. Like my knees felt kind of beat up. My quads were very, very sore for like almost a year, which is that's not a bad thing because
Right.
you want a little bit of soreness potentially after a training session, but usually it goes away after a couple of days and then you don't hit quads again for a while. But
Right.
when you're doing it 3 times a week, it's like it just starts to go away and you hit them again. So that's not a negative. It's just part of it when you're doing legs every day. Um, I kind of lost myself in all of that talking. Let's see. So I talked about the health phase, and then I just train harder. I thought I was training hard before. Then also through the health phase, that was a year and a half of pulling back on
Yeah.
intensity, and I was in the garage gym for what, like 4 years, which isn't a negative. It's just different than being in a gym. And so going back into like a bodybuilding gym and having access to all the equipment and everything, and then learning that skill of pushing myself as hard as I have learned to do. Um, I mean, that makes a night and day difference.
You feel like for most clients, that is one of the biggest things we need to learn how to do to get the result we want.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Um, Most people, whenever they get started, they're calling a set before anything starts to slow down. It might start to feel like it's burning or it's getting hard, but
Mhm.
honestly, and especially like a compound lower body lift, it should feel hard from the very first rep. Kind of like where
Yeah.
you're stopping is where we need to be starting. We need to go way heavier potentially, and yeah, that skill of bringing the intensity to every set is a huge difference maker.
For sure. What do you think? So you said like you felt like you trained hard before, and then it's been at a completely new level for like the last year and a half, 2 years. What kind of made that click? In the, I don't know if it's either like you were, oh wow, I can just train harder, so I'm just gonna do it, or was there like, did something specific click there that like allowed you to take it to that next level?
Uh, it kind of is just like, oh wow, there's more there, and so now I just do that. Because whenever I was training in the garage gym, it was like split squats, and split squats feel hard even if you're
Yeah.
at 5 or 6 reps in reserve. So it's like, oh man, this is a really hard set, but not really. Like I really had quite a bit left in the tank. Um, there's also like the fact of like I was in that health phase for so long while I was also training in the garage. So it's probably not just the fact that I was doing those particular movements. It's that I was purposefully keeping reps in the tank.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I don't know, like that gets kind of that kind of complicated things whenever I'm thinking about like my judgment of how hard I train, because it had just been so long of purposefully not taking it to failure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, one once I kind of just found that gear, you know, now you know, like you can't unlearn that. And so if you then leave reps in the tank, you know you're leaving reps in the tank. And really a lot of that was pushing it to the point where I actually fail the last rep, not trying to just leave zero in the tank, but actually not completing the last rep that I'm trying for. Because if you've never done that, but then you try to leave zero in the tank, you're probably not leaving zero in the tank.
Yeah. You don't know what zero actually feels like. And it's
Yeah.
almost always you have more than you would think. That's where I'll for sure sometimes tell clients, like, hey, don't think about RIR. Don't think about how many reps you've done. I want you to literally just go until we can't move the weight anymore.
Mhm.
And let's see where we end up. We can like watch the video back and see how many reps we got. And then this will kind of go as a benchmark for, okay, this is what I should feel like, what it should feel like, or that's like what training to that degree of intensity actually feels like. But you do really have to like have experienced it. And I think have experience failing. And then start with movements that are safe or fail on like leg extensions, hip thrusts, leg curls, whatever, before you go like, I don't know, your hack squats. Not that, honestly, most movements aren't that scary to fail if you just like put the safeties up. Unless you're doing like a barbell back squat or like a deadlift, I wouldn't fail on, but you get the point. I remember in your health phase, because I mean, we've all grown a lot as coaches in the time since. It's crazy to think about how long ago it was now that you started the health phase. But I don't think that like prior to you starting that, any of us really knew like what our training intensity should actually fully look like. I feel like that's evolved a lot over the last 3 4 years as well. And I remember in your health phase, like being able to tell you were frustrated that like you couldn't like push as hard as you wanted to.
Yeah.
When we would like go to our team trainings together and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where I didn't follow the rules, and like whenever we got together for training, I would definitely push it. And so then though, going back home and like following the rules and staying at 3 to 4 reps in reserve, or even 4 to 5 on lower body days, then that just feels so much more frustrating because it was such a long time.
So this photo shoot prep diet versus the last one, did your approach to, and of course you're working with a coach here, you were the previous as well. Did you approach this quite a lot differently from a diet perspective versus last time?
Well, both times I just followed my coach's plan, but the path there ended up being very different. Training, the way that the two coaches program training is just so different. The For the first photo shoot, there was a lot more variation in training movements, a lot more variation in like different training phases that I was in,
Mm-hmm.
and I did also this was prior to the health phase, so that there's that context. But I had to get a lot grindier. We also
In the
dropped
first photo
carbs down.
shoot.
Yeah. For the first
Yeah.
one, we dropped carbs down very, very low, which partially was just to keep progress going, but also partially because my blood glucose was high.
Okay.
I did do a little bit of cardio, but if I remember right, it was only a couple times per week. It might have been 3. I don't honestly remember exactly how much I did, but I do know that I did a little bit of cardio. I was just loading up a backpack and walking. Um,
Isn't that funny that you didn't do more
mhm.
cardio now that I think about it?
It is and it isn't. That was kind of the standard thing at that time, was to not really do a lot except unless you
No.
were a bodybuilder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting how much, or at least the way I approach that's changed a ton as well.
Yeah. So my carbs got down to about 60 at the end of that. Fats were a little bit higher.
Okay.
Couldn't tell you where calories were. I don't remember. But I remember that I was eating a lot of just like Greek yogurt and meat, and I think I had like casein pudding for my last meal, and that was it.
Okay.
So and then carbs came back up a little bit just ahead of the photo shoot.
Okay.
This time the approach was quite a bit different. I started with 3 days a week of cardio and ended with 5 days a week of cardio. Carbs stayed high relatively high throughout the entire thing. I ended at 140 carbs per day.
Okay.
Um, yeah. And and then they came up from there in the last week for the peak week.
Okay. Okay. What would you say was the hardest part of this process for you physically?
It honestly didn't get hard until the last couple weeks.
Hmm.
Um, I felt really, really good. I was like surprised by how good I felt. Like 3 or 4 weeks out, like I was hitting PRs in my training, and I was like, this feels weird. Like I know I'm not lean enough to like feel like garbage yet, you know? Because whenever it's somebody getting ready for like a show, they're just not feeling that way toward the end.
Right.
Um, and I really think that it's mostly because I just needed a deload pretty badly, but I was too close to deload. I was too close
Hmm.
in the time frame to start a deload once I realized what was going on there. And so I kind of just pushed through that and felt pretty run down the last couple of weeks and tired. Um Cardio was not something that bothered me at all up until those last couple weeks, and then it started to feel pretty mentally fatiguing to get on the
Okay.
bike. But really, like I said, I think that was just a matter of needing a deload. Like if I had been more proactive about it, but I just didn't know
Okay.
that feeling was coming because I felt so good. Maybe I just pushed it too hard whenever I felt really good, and it kind of sent me into it. But um, I wonder if I had deloaded earlier on, if I would have just continued to feel really good all the way through. It's
That's
hard
an
to know.
interesting thought. Yeah. I mean, on one end, I think that no matter, like, I like how you framed it as I just pushed through it because basically that's just what the timeline required. And again, it's different if it wasn't like for a photo shoot, but that's the reality of it is like the goal of a photo shoot prep isn't for you to feel great the entire photo shoot prep. Like when we're pushing to get a more exceptional result, like sometimes we're pushing below what's a sustainable body fat. Like getting that result is the goal, and it typically does. Like it's typically hurts at least a little bit. It sounds like it was really like pretty manageable for you until the last couple of weeks, but I think
Yeah.
that's a very good. I think that's a very good point. But again, it sounds like on the flip side, and I think we talked about this the other week, you weren't in the mindset at all of like, oh, I feel like shit and like this is so hard. And I wish food was so low and training is gonna suck. I feel like the mindset around that is everything. Like telling
Yeah.
yourself you can still make progress. People can typically make progress in their training a lot deeper into the deficit than they give themselves credit for, especially because you're quite advanced. You've been training for a long time and you still made a tremendous amount of progress through most of your fat loss phase, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that you can decide it's going to suck, and it's definitely going to suck if you decide
For
it is.
sure.
So you might as well just assume everything is going to feel good and don't put yourself into that headspace. I mean that to be transparent, that was the mental side. Now, physical side, I did lose my cycle the last month leading into the photo shoot. Had a few more symptoms like I have very thick coarse hair. I don't lose a lot of hair when I brush, and I was losing a little bit more. So I would guess that if I tested my thyroid levels there at the very end, they probably weren't great. Um but yeah, aside from that, everything was good.
And I think that, of course, like we want to avoid those things as much as possible. But like, I also think that the like, hey, your thyroid levels were worse. That's can sound
That's
so
normal.
scary. Yeah, you're not broken. It's your body is an adaptation machine. Your
Yeah.
body's sensing, hey, dude, if we keep this going, we might starve. Now, of course, you're not gonna let that happen, but it's very, very normal. Like your thyroid will downregulate to a degree as we diet. Because again, we were just like, if the pounds just fell off of us as we got leaner and leaner, again, you would just like, we would just die, right? It would be so much easier to it. So our body is adapting to that by slowing thyroid.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
it's
it's
not
resilient. It'll
really
come
like
right
a
back up.
worrisome. Sorry.
No,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. That's all I had.
Oh, it's not really like a worrisome thing in my opinion for myself because by the time those kind of things started, and it was like that's pretty minor. I wasn't like freezing cold all the time. I wasn't like my nails aren't brittle or anything like that. It was like pretty minor. Um but it's also something that started more towards the time where it's like, okay, well, we're within striking distance of the end of this diet. So it doesn't make sense to be like, okay, well, let's just pull out and bring my food back up because these things are starting to happen. No, I'm within a month of the end.
Yeah.
The end is in sight. We're going to start eating more, which is the way that you fix it. So if it were 6 months out, that would be a bad
Yeah, more
sign.
concerning. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be in for a bad time. Okay. So let's talk through the peak week. First, can you explain for the listeners what a peak week is and what the goal here is?
Yeah. So peak week is just the last few days. There are some minor things that you can change to
Hmm.
dial things in a little bit further. It's not something that you're gonna dramatically change anybody's physique. Um, you can change variables like carbs, water, training, cardio, sodium in order to give you that last like 5%. Um, it depends on where everybody's is going to be different. It depends on where someone is starting from and what the ultimate goal is with it. But for me, it was just like the goal was to look as lean as possible, but without looking stringy. If somebody's getting on stage, it's okay for them to be a little bit more stringy because when you're up there, you're going to not look stringy, like you've got the tan and all of that stuff. Um, but for a photo shoot, that doesn't photograph quite as well.
Okay.
So for us, what my coach had me do was check in with pictures in the morning, and then she would just titrate carbs based on those. So I didn't have any cardio going into the last week, which the peak week was only about 4 days because I had a surprise uh, earlier photo shoot than what it was supposed to be. So those last 4 days, cardio was removed because that reduces the fatigue on your body, and you'll usually drop a little bit of water that you're holding on to. And then carbs came up a little bit. And so then I would send in pictures. She bumped up carbs another day. And then I held there for the last 2 days at that carb
Okay.
intake. Water was basically the same throughout. The 2 days beforehand, I drank a little bit more, and what that does is your body's always adjusting and responding to the amount of water and sodium or electrolytes that you have coming in order to keep you in the right balance. So if you increase water, we have the hormone called aldosterone, and it fluctuates up and down in order to make sure that you don't get too diluted or salty. And so
Okay.
if you increase water, your body starts creating more output. So you pee more, but it takes a little bit to catch up. So if you increase water and then decrease it the next day, you continue peeing more because your body hasn't quite caught up to that yet. And so we increased water just a little bit above baseline. The 2 days out, 1 day out, brought it back to baseline, and then the photo shoot was the next morning.
Okay. Yeah, that's a Brandon and I did something very similar with my last photo shoot. I was just peeing so much, just constantly peeing, more so than I feel like I'm already constantly peeing. I I do think with the peak week it is very very important to, if you're going through a photo shoot prep, whether this even matters at all is very dependent on how lean you are getting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where we're getting, hey, we're quite lean, like you were here, gonna be more important. I find like if it's more of a lifestyle shoot, we're not shredded, we're not like below that sustainable body fat yet. Typically, I err more towards, hey, maybe we want to look at a few variables here. Like we want to drop stress, we want to drop inflammation. That'll lead to a
Hmm.
better result no matter what, right? We want to make sure like we're not skewing anything too drastically with like foods that could upset your digestion, etc. But honestly, a lot of times in that instance, it's just, hey, the best thing we can do is just keep pushing for more fat
Keep getting
loss.
leaner. Yeah.
Also, just depending on the client. Like, I know I've worked with some clients where I was like, okay, this is just going to be a fun thing for them to experience. They're going to love it. Even if we don't necessarily need this, they're just going to like love the like nerding out over all the stuff. And they were just, it was such a stressor that I was like, oh, that probably gave us a lot worse result than if I would have just like not messed with anything. Um,
Yeah.
or I remember one client like way back in the day when I first, I think this was like 2021, we were doing a photo shoot prep. And she was just like a super laid back. Like I loved working with her. She was just super laid back and like not extremely detail focused. And I laid out the whole like here's our peaking plan and like where of course like removing artificial sweeteners and like all these foods, no foods we haven't before. And I don't remember what she sent me something about like I just remember it entailed bagels, wine, and protein shake, like all in the same like it's like okay, we're not doing this thing at all, like this peak thing at all, huh? But I was like, okay, well, it is very variable. I think it's like a sexy idea, but it really, again, like unless we are already very lean, how much of a difference does it make? Do we need to mess a whole lot around with like where I don't know fat loading or carb loading or anything like that? Probably not. But there are still like some variables we want to control. That's where I just always like to make sure that context is clear.
Yeah. With more lifestyle, I'll want to make sure that their food doesn't radically change in those last days. We might pull food volume down just to make sure that their stomach is nice and flat and not distended from just, most people are going to be eating lots of fruit and vegetables, which is good. And toward the end, just stay full, which we want to, we're not as focused on feeling full in the last couple of days, just making sure that the core looks nice and tight for that short term result. And then that, like you said, not using a bunch of like artificial sweeteners, things like that, to just make sure that digestion is in a good place and they're not holding a bunch of water or anything like that. It
Okay.
doesn't usually have to be super intricate, but as you said, the leaner someone is, the more detailed we can get with it.
Fully agree. Okay, so let's talk about the shoot day then. What did food and water look like the day of the shoot for you? What time
In
was
the
your shoot
morning,
at? Like 9 a.m.,
it was at
right?
9 a.m.
The golden hour.
So,
Yep.
yeah, I had just sips of water. So, with water, you don't want to just guzzle down a bunch because then your stomach looks more full. Um, I had cream of rice with whey protein mixed in the morning, and I think just a little bit of almond butter. I didn't like overly use water to cook it to make it a little bit smaller volume. That was really it. That's all I had leaning into it. And a gram of salt too.
Okay. Okay. How did you feel going into the shoot? Like as you showed up, did you feel good?
I felt really good because I had already had more food that week than I had the previous weeks, and I was deloading training, no cardio. So I felt a lot more rested and recovered than I had
Okay.
previously, which is part of why we do that, right?
Absolutely. And that's the goal of peak week, really. What was going through your head during? Were you nervous? Did you feel good? Just having fun? Talk me through that.
I just had a lot of fun with it. I think that the photographer makes a big difference here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the guy that I used, I had found him just because he does a lot of photo shoots at the gym that I went to. So I had seen him working with people there and had seen him like tagged online on the gym's page and stuff like that. So that's how I found him. And because he had a lot of experience with gym photo shoots, I felt really comfortable just going, okay, you lead me through this. I'll just do whatever. And he asked me some questions to make sure it was like I wasn't gonna have a bunch of pictures doing battle ropes or like tire flips or anything like that because that doesn't really make sense with the way we
Dipping pull
train
ups you got,
people.
though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So he asked some questions like that to make sure it aligned with the way that we typically train our clients and train
Oh,
ourselves.
that's
So,
cool.
yeah. But aside from that, I just kind of let him lead it and said, like, whatever looks good, let's do it. And it was, so I wasn't stressed about it, or I wasn't really even self-conscious, because it's that's the type of gym where people have their tripods out all the time. They're working out in sports bras anyway. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
look super out of place, although he was using a gigantic light for the lighting part of it. That was, I mean, it was also the middle of a Sunday, so it wasn't an overly packed gym or anything like that. But yeah, I just had fun with it. I wasn't feeling anything else.
Uh, and I think that's huge. Like I was gonna ask what you would tell someone nervous about being in front of camera like this. And I think that it's in my experience, like once it gets started, I feel like it's like kind of frantic, honestly, where you don't really have time to think about it. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, we're doing this thing and I'm gonna be posing in front of camera, but it does really help. Like the photographer makes such a difference. If I don't think you have to get someone who's like crazy, crazy experience, but if they're, especially if they're like somewhat, they've like done some fitness photo shoots in the past, if you can like look at some of their work on Instagram and just, or like you can like look at like, I don't know, whatever influencers you follow in your area or something like that, and you'll pretty easily be able to find like, okay, who takes pictures for them. And it can be quite easy to find someone who's already experienced with it. And they will just be able to lead you through it so well. And just someone like you're comfortable with. If there's like an awkward energy between you, then it's like not nearly as fun to go through all that. But I think that most people who have done that are very good at like leading it and making it feel comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where, like, the thinking about it in the lead up is so much more
Oh
anxiety
yeah.
producing than the actual act of doing it. Because
Oh
once
yeah.
you start, I am not, like, I don't like to draw attention to myself in the gym, and I definitely was during the photo shoot, but I didn't think about it because you're just doing it. And I'm sure people were looking to see why there was a big light in the gym, but I don't think anybody really cares.
Especially in an atmosphere like that. It is really truly like, because I am, especially my first one that I did. I mean, every one I've done, because that's not in my element either. I think we're pretty similar in that regard. Like I have been quite nervous going into it, and then it's just, but it's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like public speaking, where like you when you did Toastmasters, right? Or like I did improv for the same reason, because it's like I'm nervous to do it, but I also know this is going to be really good for me. And I'm really proud of myself and so happy that I did this and push out of my comfort zone. But then once you actually get going, dude, it's not bad at all. And also like it's helpful to kind of have a coach who can talk through beforehand. Hey, here's roughly like my kind of like how we would approach this from like a getting these type of pictures perspective and things like that can really be so helpful as well. What would you say is the most rewarding thing you've taken from this photo shoot prep?
Uh, I think anytime you're pushing yourself to or past a limit that you've previously had, you just gain confidence from that. Um, I've never done that much cardio. I haven't been as lean as I was this time. I, changed up my food and things like that. It's like, just like the photo shoot aspect that we were just discussing, it's one of those things where the thought around, like, are you able to do this, or whatever the case may be, once you just jump in, it's never as bad as you think it is. Like, I would not have, if you asked me if I would enjoy doing 5 days of cardio a week, I'd be like, no, that sounds terrible. But really, once you're in the routine of it, you just make it happen. And I've found that so many times with the physique development stuff, or like, man, if you asked me before I had kids if I could organize my day around having the two kids with different activities and all that, it's like, no, that sounds completely overwhelming. But then once you do it, it's just like, I don't know, I just did it. So it gives me a little bit more confidence going into the next goal being a show, because that sounds terrifying. But then I know, like, once I'm doing it, I'm just going to be like, I don't know, just did it.
That's a conversation I have with clients so frequently. It's a funny thing with the type of people we attract and work with. Following through and doing the thing isn't ever really a problem.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's like a lot of our clients, like, hey, we had very successful careers, like in other areas of your life, we've always done the hard thing. And we're like on our plan here with our training, our nutrition, we're executing super well. We're nailing it. But there's a lot of times this fear of what if in the future I like don't follow through or I can't? And it's like, why do we actually have to be worried about that? Like I wish you could understand how much faith I have in you and like how much I'm not worried about that because I've seen the way you execute and the way you're able to do this. I have a bunch of people in Photoshoot preps right now, and I feel like I have that same conversation with all of them. It's a funny thing, like though how much that can be like I am sticking to the plan right now and I'm making it happen. I've always found a way to make it happen, but I have this like vague fear of like, what if I can't do it in the future? It's a funny thing. Do you find that a lot with clients as well?
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And
I did.
how you talk through it depends on the person, of course, and like the relationship that you've built with that person. Um, but it kind of it boils down to exactly what you said. Like you've always done it in the past. This you're doing things now that you didn't think that you would be able to do when you started it. So we almost just need to like get into it, and then if there becomes a problem, we could troubleshoot, but there almost never is once you just jump in with both feet.
I normally just say, "Don't be a bitch, dude," and then I feel like the rest of that's kind of just implied. Um, so for someone kind of in that instance, I'll say this is pretty similar to where a lot of our clients are, especially coaches we work with. Let's say, hey, you're a woman, you're already pretty fit, but I've always kind of wondered, could I do something like that? Like, am I capable of accomplishing something like that? Because I feel like a lot of clients we work with, or people who are considering working with us, kind of want to pull the trigger, but are kind of scared like they can't do it. What would you tell that person?
Exactly what we
Don't
have
be a bitch,
just
dude.
yeah,
Just kidding. It's fine.
exactly. Just do it. No, look at the track record that you have so far. Are you able to hit your macros? Are you able to get into the gym and do your training sessions? If you can do those two things, you can do a photo shoot. Like it's literally just that simple because nothing major changes. It's just having it structured and leading up to a a day, and you just continue doing the things that you've been doing and you let us give you the specifics. And as long as you just keep doing those two things, hit your macros and get into the gym to do your training sessions, we can make it happen.
I think a lot of times it can come from like this is an area where a lot of times people truly have just needed a better plan, right? Like we talked through with you, like you needed a health phase to be able to build more muscle in your building phase following that, and then subsequently like have thyroid and things of that nature in a better place for your fat loss phase. For a lot of people, that at least a lot of the clients we work with, it is just like we have just needed a better plan. So thus, hey, maybe we were feeling like in the past, maybe your body didn't respond how we wanted it to. We didn't get the result we wanted, but we've addressed that. Now we're already responding, like we're already on a clear path. It is really just, as you said, we just need more time. And sometimes it is also like we have to learn what leveling up looks like. As you said, like I didn't think I could, or maybe I didn't realize or think I could do 5 days of cardio before. And oh, it's not a big deal. You just figure it out, and it's not as big of a deal as you make it. Um, but I think that is really, really important where it is again, like it is just for most people, hey, we're learning how to do this a little bit better, like the same process. Like here's how we track a little bit more accurately. Here's how we avoid like more room for error. Maybe we're following a meal plan a little bit more and just giving it enough time and making sure we have enough muscle prior. But it's not like really that complicated. I think it's a lot more in reach than most people think.
Yeah, for sure.
As far as the questions go, let's go ahead and wrap this up here, and then we'll do one more kind of Q&A episode. I want to make sure we get all these answered, and I'm sorry this ended up being a little bit longer than I expected with the first half. So we will do to kind of wrap all this up. We'll do a photo shoot Q&A next time. Um, until then, as always, thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate y'all. If you enjoy the show, do us a huge favor. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. It really just helps us reach more people, helps the show grow. And if you would like to apply for coaching with our team, if you want to go through your own photo shoot prep, taking dozens of clients through this, probably our favorite thing to coach people through. Andrea is incredible at it. If you look at all these ripped people on her page, on her Instagram page, it's done a lot of photo shoot preps. So you're in incredible hands here. If you want to apply for something like that, you can DM either of us. You can hit the link in the show notes to just apply for coaching there. But for now, that is what we have for you guys. We will catch you all next time.